All right, you are all set.
Yep. So, good day everyone, and welcome to our session titled Azure Bastion. One does not simply walk into my VNet. I think with the picture and the title, I think the theme and the topic of the session will be clear. So I really hope everyone is into Lord of the Rings, and otherwise, we hope we can change your mind by the end of this session. Before going through the agenda, I want to thank FIBA for inviting us to deliver this session for the Omaha user group. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. So on the agenda today, the things we're talking about. First of all, we'll look at all the common VM administrative access methods, the different ways, the good and the bad ones on how you can connect to your Azure IaaS VMs before Bastion then. Followed by some demos. Then we will talk about Azure Bastion and dig a little deeper in how you can use it and how you can deploy it. Then followed by a fully Azure Bastion demo. After that one, we will talk about what's on the future roadmap. And before closing off, we will go to the key takeaways, the things you should really remember about our session. And completely at the end, we'll probably have some time for doing a Q&A. So my name is Matthyssen, and I work as a cloud architect at Synergix. In my daily job, I'm completely focused on Azure and all related Azure hybrid services. Next to that, I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, so I deliver all kinds of Azure trainings and also workshops. Since the beginning of this year, I'm also a founding board member of a new Belgium user group, MC2MC, which stands for Microsoft Cloud and Client Management Community, and it's a user group focusing on Azure and the complete Microsoft 365 stack. Since March of this year, I'm also recognized by Microsoft as an Azure Hero, Community Hero, and also as a Content Hero. I also have my own blog, https://wmatthyssen.com, where I blog a lot about my daily experiences with Azure and other Microsoft technologies. I'm also on Twitter, like most IT guys and girls these days. So if you ever want to reach out, just want to say hi, or if you have a question about Bastion, for example, you can always reach me through my Twitter handle @Matthyssen. And I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can also reach me from there. So I will let Micha introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Micha. I'm an independent contractor, so I have my own little firm. At days, I'm a technology strategist at Aspects, who is a CSP in Belgium. Since, correct me if I'm wrong, Wim, since January,
January,
came aboard at MC2MC. The awesome user group from Belgium. Also, since December 2018, I became Microsoft MVP on Windows Virtual Desktop. Awesome technology, especially in this time where remote work is so important. But also active in the community as Wim, do some talking, lots of sharing, lots of community things, helping improve Azure. So really helping with the future.
Okay.
The same as Wim, active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and my blog. I don't do that much blogging, but most of the things are on Twitter.
Okay, thanks, Micha. So to start with the session, we're going to look at all the common VM administrative access methods. So like probably most of you know the easiest way, but also the least secure one to connect to an Azure VM is by using its public IP address, its PIP. In this way, you can connect to the VM through RDP or SSH, depending if the VM is a Windows or a Linux VM. If you're using an NSGO for that specific VM subnet, you should also allow both ports to get it working. This kind of way of connecting to your Azure IaaS VM is good for studying purposes, or when you need to do a quick test, but you should never, and mark my words, use it in a production environment, because by using it this way to connect to your VMs, one or both of those management ports will be widely opened on the internet. And in this way, your VM can easily be attacked by hackers, or like in the picture by Ox, for example. There is also another way to connect to your VMs by placing them behind an Azure external load balancer. And instead of the VM, then the load balancer then uses the public IP address, and you connect to that PIP once again through RDP or SSH. Once again, also again over the public internet, and then the load balancer will redirect you to the VMs behind it. I think I already saw this method being used once or twice by a customer, but it's a kind of a way of security through obscurity, like they say, because one or both of those management ports are still opened on the internet. Only now there's a load balancer in front of them. And once again, it's not a good method to connect to your IaaS VMs, and surely not in a production environment. Because in both of the ways, if you do it directly with the PIP or through the load balancer, you can't prevent any breaches. This because attackers commonly attack both ports, mostly all those management ports on the internet-facing VMs. And they're using brute force attacks, DDoS attacks, or whatever other attacking methods. And an example of a successful brute force attack, an attacker can compromise your VM and in that way establish a foothold into your environment. And then do whatever he wants to do, steal your data, let your VMs crash, whatever he wants to do, he can do it then. So if you look at, if you opened up both management ports, if it's RDP 3389 or SSH 22, and you open that associated NSG, you will see that the name field, in the name field, the rule name is preceded by a hazard triangle with an exclamation mark telling you that there is a security risk by opening those ports on the internet. Also, like you can see on the screen, if you open up Azure Security Center, under your resource health hygiene, you will see a security recommendation that both management ports should be closed on those virtual machines. And Azure Security Center, as a quick fix, will recommend you to enable, for example, JIT on both VMs to make them more secure. So then how do you connect then to your Azure IaaS VMs in a high secure way? First of all, by using a site-to-site VPN or an express route. In this way, you can connect from your on-premises environments to the private IP addresses of your VMs directly through the tunnel, completely secured. Next to those, you can also use a point-to-site VPN. In this way, you can set up a secure connection to any VNet from your personal computer or any other device you want to use. You can do this in a certificate-based authentication way or through Radius. But these days, you also have the option to use the OpenVPN protocol and even to use Azure Active Directory authentication, for example. So this kind of setup you mostly see at companies whenever they use Azure in a if they use IaaS in a production kind of way. You mostly it depends on the size of the company. Mostly they start off with the site-to-site VPN, and if, for example, they're going to run high critical workloads or business critical workloads on Azure, they mostly evolve to an express route or keep both of those connections living next to each other. A thing you also see a lot being used in a production environment is a jump box or a jump host, like they say, or a jump server. A jump box is a server on a network, in this case in Azure, which is used to access other devices in a separate security zone, or in a spoke VNet if you're working with a hub spoke model in Azure. It's a kind of a controlled entry point into your Azure environment, set up in a separated VNet or subnet, like for example, management subnet, which improves overall security and reduces the attack surface of your VMs. You're gonna kind of jump to that VM, and from that VM you jump to all other VMs you want to manage. To allow access from the internet, this VM, this jump box uses a PIP, and most of the time you will see it being deployed as a very small Linux VM. So in that way you can kind of tunnel your RDP connection through SSH. It's really strange, but it works. I also saw customers using an RDS gateway as a small VM, and then by this tunnel the RDP connection through SSL. So it's a good way to make a secure connection, but yet it's another resource for you to keep updated and backed up. You also need to troubleshoot it when it fails. And for example, if you want to foresee high availability, you also need to set up 2 of them. So if one is down, you still can connect through the other one. So then the price of this kind of way to securely connect to your VMs will go up, and it can depend if people want to do it in this way. Oh, sorry, one click too fast. I'm going back. Yeah, it's this one. Sorry. So a way to protect that jump box with the PIP, you can use JIT. It's just-in-time VM access, if you say it in a long way. With JIT, you will enable a lockdown on your VM at the network level by blocking inbound traffic to specific management ports, like, for example, 3389 or 22. And this for a limited amount of time of, I think it's around 24 hours, the maximum now. In this way, JIT will enable you to control the access and reduce the attack surface of your VMs. The only thing you should keep in mind, if you want to use JIT, you should enable the standard tier of Azure Security Center. So pricing will go up, because then you need to pay for your security center. And I think it's in euros, it's around 15 euros for each node you want to manage. So I think it's around $13 probably. You should also keep in mind that it only supports Azure Resource Manager's VMs. So if you're still using ASM, so the old classic VMs, you can't access them through JIT. So how does JIT work? First of all, a user needs to request access to a VM. Then Security Center in the back checks if that user has role-based access permissions for that specific VM. If so, the request is approved, and then Security Center will automatically configure the NSG to allow the inbound traffic on the port that's asked for that specific amount of time. If the time is passed, and then Security Center will restore the NSG back in its previous state. So the RDP access, for example, doesn't work then anymore. A nice thing, an add-on is if you make such a request, or a user makes such a request, every access is logged in the activity log. So you can follow up who asked access, when he asked it, how long did he make connection, and stuff like that. So that's a good thing. So the first demo, I will first click this one away. So I think everyone is seeing my portal at the moment. So I have a couple of VMs running. The first one is the Frodo one. Like you can see, this one has a public IP address. So if I want to connect to that one, if you do it through the portal, just click on connect. It's a Windows VM, so I choose RDP. It will open. You can download the RDP file. It's over here. You can click on it. I will mark this. You just click connect. So my super secret username is already shown. You just type in the password. And you can simply, working with the dual screen. So there it is. And I have access through the VM directly to its PIP address. That's not that secure. So I'll close this one. If you look at the network security group for this specific VM, it's one connected directly to the VM, so it's not for the complete subnet. So you can see both management parts are opened, but the hazard with the triangle with the hazard in it is showing up saying it's not that secure. If you look at Azure Security Center, for example, and you go to resource hygiene, and you click on the compute one, you will see one of the security recommendations is management port should be closed on your virtual machine. It's showing this VM. And if you click on it, it will show that both ports are open and that you should disable those. A better way to do it, if you're using, for example, a jump box which has a PIP, you can protect it with JIT. So once again, you open Security Center again. In our environment, we're using the standard version, so we can use JIT. Under Advanced Cloud Defense, you will find just-in-time VM access. If you click on it, it will open. You can see I already configured 2 VMs with specific ports. And you can also see which user is the one that allows to connect to it. If you want to configure another VM that's not yet configured for JIT, you just click on the Not Configured tab. You select the VM, for example, the Frodo one. You click on the button Enable JIT. You choose your ports you want to use, the time frame you use, and you just click Save. That's it. So if I want to connect to a specific VM where JIT is enabled, I first will go back to my virtual machines. I have another VM. You just click on Connect again. It's also a Windows VM, so once again, I need to choose RDP. And now you can see at the bottom, there's a button called Request Access. You just click on it. You will see a notification will be shown that the request access is approved already. Then you just once again download the RDP file, but you should keep in mind that before you have connection, it could take up to 1 or 2 minutes before the connection is really set up in the back. So I will give it a try. I think it's this one. If see it's already working, this one's popping up. If you click on connect, it's connecting over here. Still not completely configured, I think. I will try to download again. Oh, here it is. Just type in the password again. I think I typed it wrong, but I will give it a try. No, it's not good. Let me see once again. Use different accounts. It was cached probably with the wrong one. So 19. And now it's connecting. And it's connected. So you can see now I'm connected through JIT. And if you look at the security center again, just-in-time VM access, you will see I have a request. One is active now under that specific user who requested it. That's me. So if you look at the activity log, for example, you can see all access is shown, initiation. If you click through on it, you will see everything you want to know. So I will pop over to the presentation again. And then Micha, I think it's up to you.
Yes. So let's take a look at what is Azure Bastion exactly. First, the definition. We need to start with the definition. Azure Bastion, as Microsoft calls it, this is the pure definition of Microsoft. Azure Bastion is a PaaS service that you provision inside your VNet, so inside your virtual network. It provides you a secure and seamless connection to your virtual machines directly in the Azure portal using HTTPS or SSL. So that's the strict definition of Microsoft. That's it for this session. Thank you. And just kidding. So an overview. What is Azure Bastion? It's a PaaS service. So Azure Bastion is a PaaS service managed by Microsoft, which is provisioned inside your VNet. So you just ask Microsoft, give me an Azure Bastion host, and Microsoft deploys the Azure Bastion host inside your VNet. It gives you secure RDP or SSH connectivity to your virtual machines, but running inside the Azure portal. So it doesn't require, as Wim showed, direct RDP or SSH connection to your virtual machines. It's simply, or it's a secure RDP or SSH connection inside the Azure portal. The public IP address is no longer required, so you can really remove all public IPs from your virtual machines and just use the private IPs, as we will show in the demos. Also really important, it's agentless. So you don't need to install any additional software on your virtual machines. You can really go for an agentless deployment. You can use Azure Bastion without installing anything on your virtual machines. It is in the background a VM scale set, so you don't have to worry about how many connections there are in the Azure Bastion, how many people are connecting through Azure Bastion. It's a scale set, so it really doesn't matter for you. You can simply use it. It's a PaaS service. And it's a great protection for port scanning, for any exploits, for malware. It really doesn't matter because there is no RDP connection going to your virtual machines from the outside. So a really great protection for your virtual machines. Now, let's see how it works. As you can see on the right-hand side, we have our virtual machines. We have an appliance, a managed appliance from Microsoft, which will be injected into our VNet. Once it's injected, you will see that there's a HTTPS public IP, which will be introduced into your VNet, which is exposed to the internet, of course, because you still need to connect. You still need to be able to connect, but instead of assigning it to your virtual machine, it's assigned to the Azure Bastion. Important for you is that you will need to allow 3389, so the RDP port, or SSH to your virtual machines, because the Azure Bastion will set up that connection to your virtual machines. So you will need to configure your NSGs for that. And as mentioned here, really important one, no public IPs are required on your virtual machines. So you can even save some costs on that. This is something you need to keep in mind at this moment. You still need to deploy a Bastion host inside every VNet that you have. So even if you set up VNet peering across all your VNets, you still need to deploy an Azure Bastion host inside every VNet. As long as the VNet peering is not supported for Azure Bastion, you will need to deploy Bastion in each VNet. Something to keep in mind. A few use cases. There will be more, but these are the most important ones. as Wim mentioned, a secure environment is an environment where you have a site-to-site or a point-to-site or an express route configuration. If you don't have such a configuration, then an Azure Bastion is a really good solution to manage your virtual machines. Another one is when a jump box just doesn't meet the requirements. For example, if 338.9 is not allowed because it's sometimes more expensive due to the high availability setup that you need to do, because you need to manage your virtual environment. So you have to make it high available. So it could be more expensive because also virtual machines require maintenance. Also, another use case is the hard requirement. Sometimes a hard requirement for HTTPS. So if you want to manage your virtual machines, HTTPS is a hard requirement for your company. It's a policy. Also, if you want to be easy deployable, easy removable, that's also a requirement. Then a jump box can be more challenging. It can be more difficult compared to a Azure Bastion host. If we look at how to deploy it, then Wim will show that as well. It's super easy to deploy an Azure Bastion host. If you have a PowerShell script, it can be deployed within 5 minutes, can be removed again after all the work is done. So it's also something that's easy deployable and easy removable. Also, if you want to have temporary access to a virtual machine and only the virtual machine, you can also use it in combination with JIT. So you can use Azure Bastion and even throw JIT on top of it. So it's a great combination to use both of them. Also, an important one is the pricing slide. If we look at the pricing for Azure Bastion, if you keep it running for an entire month, this is the fixed cost. Wim did the calculation for the East US region, so it's $138.7 per month. On top of that, you need to keep in mind for the traffic, the outbound traffic. So inbound ingress is always free in Azure. It's always the outbound traffic that you will pay. First 5 gigabytes are for free. For smaller or medium customers, this will be sufficient if you don't need to do that much maintenance on your virtual machines. But as soon as you cross the 5 gigabytes, you will start to pay for each gigabyte that will be going out of your virtual network. Also, prices are different for each region. So you need to keep this in mind where your virtual machine is deployed, where your Azure Bastion is deployed. If you want to be sure how much it costs, definitely take a look at the Azure cost calculator.
Okay, so how do you deploy Bastion? So before you start with your deployment, first of all, like Micha already mentioned, you should be aware if Azure Bastion is available in the region you want to deploy it. Most Europe regions, there is no problem. I believe it's also available in East US, the second one, and in West US. So for you guys, probably there shouldn't be any problem also. Then, for example, if you have a specific governance strategy in place or a governance plan you need to follow, you should follow it, especially for the naming of the Azure Bastion host. Like, for example, shown on the screenshot, MC2MC prod BA, where BA stands for the shortening of Bastion. And you should also use, for example, resource tags. For people who don't know it, with resource tags, you can add extra metadata to any Azure resource by using a specific tag. And a tag always exists of a name and a value. So a good tag to use in combination with Azure Bastion is, for example, one that describes the VNet where the Azure Bastion host is located. So in that way, you can easily find in which VNet that Azure Bastion host is available to use. There are a couple of things you can do in advance. You can simply install Azure Bastion through the portal, but if you do it by script or CLI, you can do a lot of stuff before you finally start deploying it. For example, you can already create the specific VNet for your Azure Bastion. That VNet, that subnet should be exactly named Azure Bastion Subnet. If it's not called that way, your deployment will fail. And it should be a /27 or larger. A thing we see a lot at companies, and a thing you should check at first, is that the necessary address space is available in your VNet. Because the thing we see a lot is that all subnets are already used or filled up the complete VNet. So there is no place or no location available anymore in the address space to create that specific subnet. So if you start with a new greenfield deployment, it's something you should keep in mind. And if we at our customers start deploying new environments, we also take the Azure Bastion subnet already in calculation. So it's already in place, even if the customer is never going to use Azure Bastion. It's there and he can use it if it's needed. If you already protect that subnet directly when you deploy it within NSG, a thing you should also keep in mind is that all inbound and outbound rules should be in place to allow the necessary access to the needed ports. Otherwise, also the deployment will fail. If you, for example, use Azure Firewall or any other network virtual appliance, a thing you shouldn't do is associate the Azure Bastion subnet in the route table. Otherwise, you probably will end up blocking traffic required for the Azure Bastion to work. Bastion itself requires a static pip. If you also create it in advance, you should deploy it with a standard public IP SKU. And if all those things are in place, you can simply deploy your Azure Bastion host through the portal, through Azure PowerShell, to since a couple of months also through Azure CLI, or to an ARM template. So you have a lot of options to deploy it. Choose the one that fits you best. Like I already said in the previous slide, if you want to harden your subnet, your Azure Bastion subnet, you can use a network security group or NSGs, which will allow the necessary inbound and outbound traffic. First of all, on the Azure Bastion subnet, you should allow TCP traffic on port 443 from service stack internet, and also traffic on port 443 and 4433 from the service stack gateway manager, and this to allow all management traffic. And then you can set a deny rule, which denies all other traffic. So no other traffic can get into your VM. And you can do it with, for example, priority 900. As outbound rules on that Azure Bastion subnet, you should allow TCP traffic on ports 3389 and 22 to the service stack virtual network. That specific service stack, if you use it, will allow management on your VMs in all the different subnets located in that VNet. Next to that, you should also allow traffic on port 443 for the service stack Azure Cloud. The Azure Cloud service stack holds all Azure data center public IPs. So in the back, it will also get your Azure Bastion to work. So you also need that one. And finally, for example, on a specific VM subnet where you want to manage a specific VM, you should allow, if there is an NSGO on that one, you should allow inbound TCP traffic on port 3389 if you're using RDP, or port 22 if you're using SSH for the Azure Bastion subnet IP range. So you need to have exactly those in and outbound rules in place. If you're missing one, your deployment will fail. So like showing in this screenshot, in those both screenshots, when you try to add the NSG to the Azure Bastion subnet, you will receive an error if not all the required ports are in place. And also when you try to change or delete a specific in or outbound rule in that associated NSG, if not all the necessary ones are in place, your deletion or your change will also fail, like shown in the bottom screenshot. So what about JIT VM Access? Good to know is that you can combine JIT with Azure Bastion, but you need to use a little workaround. You first of all need to request access first under the RDP or SSH tab. If you requested the access, you then can go to the Azure Bastion tab, and then you can connect to your VMs from there. So until now, the request access button is not yet integrated under the Bastion blade. So hopefully Microsoft will take care of that in the future also. So Micha, I think it's up to you again.
Yes. So a few roles that you require to access the virtual machines. First, you need a reader role on the virtual machine or the virtual machines that you want to manage. So you need to be able to read the properties from the virtual machine. Second is also a reader role on the network interface from that virtual machine, because you need to be able to read the private IP from the virtual machines. So if you can't see the private IPs, you will not be able to connect. Last but not least, you need to have a reader role on the Azure Bastion resource itself, of course. Even if you can see the Azure Bastion option inside the virtual machine, you still need to have a reader role on the Azure Bastion host that will give you access to the virtual machine itself. It is possible to connect to virtual machines, but it is also possible, I stated at the bottom, to connect to virtual machine scale sets. So you can use it to connect to the scale sets, but also to the Dev Test Lab virtual machines. So it is not limited to simple virtual machines. You can use it for scale sets and the Dev Test Labs as well. What can you do in a remote session? Almost everything. But it's limited, of course, because you still work inside your browser. You are able to do some copy paste from texts. So you can get some commands from your local machine and put it into the virtual machine. Get some output from the virtual machine and get it back to your own machine. That is possible. It is limited to text at this moment, but you can copy and paste the text. You can enlarge the tab, so you can connect to your virtual machine using Bastion in a new tab, and you can put that tab to full screen mode. So simulate that you're connected to your virtual machine. At this time, it is not supported for file transfer, so you will not be able to transfer any files to or from your virtual machine using the Azure Bastion. There are some features that are coming, but yeah, it's limited to the copy paste of text at this moment. Some demo time, I think, Wim.
Yep. Are you going to take over the screen?
Yes, let's see.
And I will take over again after your demo.
Normally, you should be able to see my screen.
Yep, should be fine.
Okay, awesome. So we are in the second resource group now. We have 2 virtual machines deployed and also a Azure Bastion host, which is available right now. We're going to start with the R1 virtual machine. If we're going to click through, then you will see that we have a private IP connected to the virtual machine. No public IP is configured on the virtual machine. It is a Linux virtual machine, so it is a Linux machine running on Azure. If we click on Connect, we go to SSH. For the portal, it really doesn't matter. It would give you the option to connect to the private IP, but it doesn't have a public IP, so connecting from my machine to that virtual machine would be impossible. So we're going to do this the same with Azure Bastion. This is how it looks. You can check or deselect the open in the new window. I will keep it selected. Type in the username and password. For Linux, it can be SSH private key. It can you can connect using a private key from a local file. We're going to use the username and password. Let me quickly copy paste this. And let's hit connect. A new tab is opening. It is asking to be able to use our clipboard. It is in Dutch, but it asks if it can have access to my clipboard. And now we're connected to our Linux virtual machine. Wim deployed a Ubuntu virtual machine, and now we're really connected using SSH through our Azure Bastion host. We can do everything now because we are connected with our user account. I'm not that into Linux, so I just copied something from. Most of the time, if I do a demo using PowerShell and I want to keep it fancy, or I want to do something in Linux, I use Parrot.live. I don't know if everybody knows Parrot.live. If you just curl Parrot.live, then you get this. A dancing parrot. This is my Linux knowledge, so I'm going to keep it running like this. And we're going to do the same with our other virtual machine, our SAN virtual machine. As you can see, the same as the Linux virtual machine, no public IP address, only a private IP address. And this time it's a Windows server, so Windows 2016. Again, doesn't really matter which virtual machine it is, Windows or Linux, really doesn't matter which version. As long as the virtual machine is accepting 2389, then you will be able to connect. We're going back to the connect default option RDP, but this will not work because it only has a private IP, and from my virtual machine, which is not in the VNet, I would be unable to connect. So we're going to use Bastion. Quickly copy paste our credentials. Hit connect. And we simply sign it into our server using, again, the Azure Bastion. And as you can see, it is like you are RDPing through a gateway or through a VPN connection or through directly to your virtual machine. You will be able to manage your entire virtual machine. For the clipboard, they added a small icon on the left, as you can see over here. If you click on it, then this is the possibility for you to copy things into your virtual machine or to extract the clipboard from your virtual machine to your local machine. Now, I want to show you the same and put it a small PowerShell script in here. Okay. Let's use the ID. More like it. And we have the same in PowerShell, but in our Windows virtual machine. So again, the Parrot live quickly rendered. But just to show you, it is possible to put your clipboard into the virtual machine, but also to extract things from the virtual machine back to your own machine. If you click on copy, then you will see that it is in the clipboard screen, and you will be able to extract this and put it into your own virtual machine. Management, if we go back to our resource group and click on the Bastion host, this is our Bastion host. Then you have a section which is called session over here. And then you will see that we have two sessions connected to our virtual machines. We can see who is connected to which host name or to which virtual machine. And you'll be able to even delete a specific session. We're going to delete the RDP session, which is the same. And then you'll see that it gets a message that it is disconnected. Okay, Wim.
Yeah,
you're going to show us how to deploy.
Again. Yeah. So let me first take over the screen again. So I think my screen is showing now again. Yes. I think we also wanted to show is that specific NSG. So Micha was showing some things with the Azure Bastion host, but at the Azure Bastion subnet, we created the specific NSG. And like you can see, let me show it off. Those ports need to be in place. So the 443 on TCP, 443, 443 for a gateway manager. And then we have a deny one on the 900, which deny all other traffic. And if you look at the outbound ones, these ones, we have the one to the Azure cloud and to the specific virtual network tag. So if you want to use it and harden it up with an NSG, it needs to look like this. So if you want to deploy a Bastion host in a new environment, most easiest way is through the portal. If you go to the global search bar in the middle of the screen, if you type in Bastion, you will see the Bastion. Another nice feature is if you use it through the global search bar, documentation is already directly listed in the right part of the screen. So you can click on the Azure Bastion. It will open the docs directly. What is Bastion? And even you can go to the Architecture Center, how to deploy it, and you can follow it with another tab. So that's a nice add-on. So if I type in Bastion again, open up Bastion, you can see we already have one. That's the one Micha used for his demo. You simply click on Add. Let me open up. You choose your subscription. You choose your research group. I will use the third one. You give it a name. Demo Bastion. We will name it like it. For us, it's the West Europe region. So for you guys, probably it will be East, West, or East US 2 or something. You can choose your virtual network. It's in our third research group. So we choose our third one. You can see we already created the Azure Bastion subnet in front, so it's simply showing. You can create a new public IP or use an existing one. We already created also one in advance, so we select that one. Then you can add the tags you want. A good one to use is the one with the VNet. And this one it's the third one. We'll use it like that. You just click on review and create. Validation passed. You click on it, create, and it will take up to 4 or 5 minutes, and then the Azure Bastion is ready to use. So that's how easy it is. Just a few clicks in the portal, you can set it up. I myself mostly do it through PowerShell. We even have a customer, like Micha said, that only uses it when he needs to manage his VMs. So he deploys it with PowerShell. It's set up. He does all his stuff he needs to do on his VMs, and then he drops it again, because like everybody knows, you only need to pay for what you use in Azure. So if you set it up, use it. You don't hear that from me. You set it up and you drop it again, and whenever you need it again, you can set it up again. Yeah, it's some work, but yeah, if you want to don't spend too much money and want to keep an eye on your cloud spend, it's a little tricky you can use to don't spend too much. So I will go back to the demos. One moment, let me show me my screen again. I think Micha, you will close off.
Yeah, sure. So the roadmap for Azure Bastion, a much requested feature is the VNet peering. So you don't have to deploy Azure Bastion in each VNet. Also, the Azure AD SSO with MFA support should be or will be supported. The full session recording for auditing purposes, because some companies have a policy that every RDP session is recorded, especially if you go to manage your virtual machines. Azure AD PIM integration, again for the policies for the access, and also at this time your Azure Bastion host will get a public IP because you need to connect to the Azure Bastion host. But it's also a requested feature to only assign a private IP and still connect to your virtual machines through the Azure Bastion host using an express route or a site-to-site VPN. So that's protection on top of protection on top of protection. If you need protection. There's also in the slides the Azure Bastion feedback page, where you can provide feedback to the product group. It's not always guaranteed that they will pick it up, but the more people that do some feedback, the quicker it will be accepted, of course.
Thing Microsoft is also working on, if you have a native RDP or SSH client on your Windows VM, they probably will integrate it so you can use it to connect directly from that client, so your RDP client on your Windows 10 Surface or whatever, and then directly connect through the Azure Bastion to the VMs. So that's the thing they also are working on, but yeah, we don't know in which time frame. So hopefully, because yeah, that should be also a nice add-on, because then you don't need to first open the Azure portal and then go through all the steps to get the Azure Bastion and the connection, and you can do it directly from your Windows 10. So to close off, we have 5 key takeaways. Okay, they're going back. I need to go forward. First of all, Azure Bastion is a PaaS service for RDP, SSH access to your VMs directly through the Azure portal, so directly through SSL. The nice thing, you don't need any PIP anymore to manage your VMs from outside. So all your VMs shouldn't, only your web VMs probably, and then best is to add a load balancer or a web application gateway in front of them. So for management purposes, your VMs don't need a PIP anymore. One thing you should really keep in mind is that until now, you still need an Azure Bastion host in every VNet where you want to manage your VMs in any specific subnet of that VNet. You can harden it with the NSG like we showed, and you can combine it with JIT. So yeah, to lesser close off the access to the VMs to a smaller amount of time or to specific people, you can combine it with JIT. And then really important one, Azure Bastion costs around $100, I think it was. So if you need to deploy some bastions in different VNets, you need to deploy 5 of them. Yeah, your Azure spend at the end of the month will go up. So if you use it, keep an eye on your cloud spend. So we also have some references listed. So we probably will make the slide deck available so you guys can have it whenever you want. And then, yeah, I think it's time for a Q&A. So ask the wizard if you have any questions. And yeah, we want to thank you. I'm not going to spell that one because it's in Elfish, but from my side and from Micha's side, probably thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, just shout.
Thank you, Wim and Micha. There were a few questions on the chat, which I think Micha already responded back. If there is any further questions, this is probably audience can go on unmute and ask directly now. Otherwise, I'll say thanks once again, Wim and Micha. I'm going to stop recording once before we go ahead with the giveaway raffle. Just give me a second.